All right. Welcome to Advanced Toastmasters Online. We are an Advanced Toastmasters club which supports maverick leaders in creating greater impact by providing advanced feedback on online presentation and leadership skills and discovering what it means to be an out-of-the-box, innovative leader. And all of us that are here, it looks like we all know everything that we need to know about using the Zoom meeting, so I'm not even going to go through that. But welcome. I'm going to stop sharing. And I hear my bells in the background telling me that it's lunchtime. Do you guys have that where you are? The lunchtime sirens every Wednesday? No?
No, I'd stop salivating if it did.
Yeah, Pavlov. Yeah, it's supposed to be an emergency siren, so that they test it every Wednesday. It used to be every day. Sometimes they do it every day, but now it's every Wednesday. Anyway, so welcome, and I'm going to bring up our agenda. You can find it. I'm going to also put it in our chat. I'll put it in the chat space here because I just I will copy that and put it in our chat so you can see the agenda. And we are going to start with our timer of the day. Kelly, would you like to tell us what you're going to do as a timer?
I would love to tell you what I'm going to do as a timer. I'm going to hold up cool cards.
Yay!
As the timer, I am responsible to record the time for especially the important activities such as the speech, the evaluation. If we get into some funky table topics, then I would definitely go with that. You will see this on the front end, the early end, which Rick will tell me is probably 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, good. So 5 minutes, Rick, I would show you your green, 6 minutes for yellow, and red for 7 minutes. The hook comes out, but it's proverbial, 7.5, 8 minutes. But no, let's have fun.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. The one thing, and we're all doing this except for me, I just noticed that when we're speaking, we can have our microphones on, but when it's not our time to speak, if we can mute ourselves, that would be great. And yeah, so I'm just looking up here on word of the day since we don't have as many people as, whoa, here's our word of the day. Repertoire. Merriam-Webster's word of the day, I'm putting it in the chat box. It is repertoire, which means a list or supply of dramas, operas, or pieces or parts that accompany a person or person is prepared to perform, a supply of skills, a list or supply of capabilities. So what is your repertoire with public speaking? Yeah, that's the word of the day. Thank you, Merriam-Webster. And I'm not sure, how do I, can you hear, you can hear me, right? It's not picking up my video on here, so let's go back to gallery view. Oh, and there's Lori. Hi, Lori.
Hi.
All right. And at this time, I'd like to introduce our first speaker of the day, and that's Rick Weiner. And he will be giving a speech that will complete his level 2. And he is speaking on what does it mean to be a mentee. Please help me welcome Rick Weiner on what does it mean to be a mentee.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. When looking over the project of what I needed to do for this speech, I was reading that a lot of it dealt with Toastmasters, being a mentee in Toastmasters. And I thought, you know, that's boring. We've all been there. I want to talk about different life mentees. To preface this, to fill the obligation, when I first joined Toastmasters, I went to a meeting that my wife dragged me to, and I said, what do I want to be there for? And after about 15 minutes, I said, I'll sign up for the humorous speech contest. You have to be a member first. So I joined, and I was assigned a mentor. Doug, you probably know him, Bash Teray. He's a past international director. He was district director, district governor twice in our district. He was my mentor. And what did I learn from him? Well, one of the main things I learned as a mentor, you don't go chasing after the mentee goes to you to show that you really have the desire to learn, and he's there to support you, or she is there to support you. He was a very good mentor for me, not necessarily in my first speeches, but later on in my Toastmasters career. Now I'm going to stop talking about Toastmasters. Doug, you'll remember this from my last speech where you were my evaluator. My first mentor, of course, is my parents, but going beyond that, when I was looking at what's important to me. Not like family's not important, but my career, my life. And I started learning music, as I said in my previous speech. And I had a number of mentors. My first teacher was an amazing gentleman. He was my teacher from 6th grade through graduation of high school. He was the very best. Anybody in the music industry, you mention his name, he's known. He mentored me in playing music. But beyond Tony, I had a mentor on the other side of things. The mentor was my teacher, music teacher in school. That was not my private teacher, but the teacher in school. This gentleman, his name was John. From 7th grade on, he was my music teacher in the school system. How was he a mentor? He was a guide. Well, let me start off with this, the definition of a mentor. According to Merriam-Webster, it's one who is being mentored, protege. Nearly all the mentees opted to remain in the sciences. That was a definition by Sally Rubenstone. And according to the Cambridge English Dictionary, a mentor is a person who is helped by a mentor, a person who gives younger or less experienced people an opportunity. And that's how John helped me. I started off as a wise kid, you know, I knew everything. And John reeled me in. And he was somebody to look up to. He had a lot of experience before he became a school teacher. He was in the Navy, he was teacher in other systems, and he became the head of the music department in the city that I grew up in. Going through school, he took me under his wing. By doing that, he was a guide. He was somebody I could talk to, ask questions about, more than just music or education. I had decided at the time I wanted to be a music teacher. He supported me through that. He allowed me to do my student teaching in that school system. But then after school, after I had graduated, I was no longer in school. I was living in a different world. He came to me and he suggested that I audition for certain bands. And I did, and I played in these professional bands for many years. And through that period of time, which is probably 45, 50 years, this gentleman played in the same bands that I played in. Sometimes he was a conductor in some of the bands I played in. Sometimes he was the tuba player. And we worked together every week during the concert season. And outside of the concert season, we worked together. What did I learn from him? I learned discipline. I learned so much more than I could even put into words because he was a guide. He was a tremendous worker for me. I can see my time is getting short, although DTM doesn't mean don't time me, but I'll finish off appropriately. When I went to a concert and John wasn't there, and I thought nothing of it. Sometimes we miss one or two here and there because we have other commitments and somebody else fills in for us. Then the next one, he wasn't there either. And the next one, he wasn't there. So I called him up and said, John, where are you? And he said to me, Rick, I don't think I'll ever see you again. I have cancer, I'm dying. So I said, John, can I come visit you? He said, you'd come to my house? I said, absolutely. I went to his home. It was a pouring rainy day. It was a monsoon rain. I got into his house and one of his daughters was there, and I sat in the living room with him. He was sitting in his recliner with the oxygen up his nose and just kind of hanging out. And we were talking, and I'm trying to think of things to say that would be not depressing, but enlivening. And I said to him, John, in all the concerts you've played, have you ever played a wrong note? And he smiled. And he said, no. Whatever notes I played, whether they were on the paper or not, were the ones that were meant to be at that time. This is why I brought him up as my mentor. To this day, that conversation has so much meaning to me. It's more than just playing a B flat instead of a B natural. It's what we do every day of our lives is what's meant to be. And I learned a lot from that gentleman. He's gone now. I still think of him every time I go on stage. He was truly a mentor to me throughout my life. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Rick, for that speech, that touching speech. And yeah, I appreciate it. And at this time, we have a surprise topics master who joined us. Happily, I am very happy that she's here. And at this time, I'm going to just ask Lori if she's ready to do our table topics for the day. Yay! Please help me welcome Lori Whitmore as she leads us in table topics.
Glad to be here. I figured out very quickly, this is more important than my job, so I'm making the time.
Yay!
So I have a few table topics prepared for anyone who's not a speaker today. That means everyone except Rick. What is your favorite quote or saying? Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Topics Master. So I think quotes are an interesting thing. Why do we decide that because something rhymes or because it's 10 words or less and the first 5 work well with the second 5? Why are those more important than others? Why would it take having somebody stand on a stage and say something like Craig Ballantyne, who's so fantastic at throwing out something that's memorable every 10 minutes? I think every word we say matters. For example, if I say, thank you, Madam Topics Master, that's important because that quote came out of my face. And that is something heart to heart that I want to say to the person who's just thrown the stage over to me, the proverbial stage in this case. But I think if we start taking quotes to heart that quotes are nothing more than the words we say, and we just put more meaning on them. Then I think we might want to make our own quote, which is, every word that comes from us is meaningful. That's my favorite quote right now. Thank you, Madam Topics Master.
Thank you, Kelly. That was not the answer I was expecting, but it was very well thought through. They couldn't pay me enough to do that job. What job would that be for you? Doug.
They couldn't pay me enough to do that job. That's a tough one because naturally we want to focus on things that we actually want to do. Here you're asking me to focus on something that I would not do. I think I'd have to say they couldn't pay me enough to be a hitman. Because after all, that's the kind of job where you have to go and hunt somebody down. And I don't know that I could do that. First, I have to get a gun, which I don't have right now. Although, I don't know, maybe there's something else. I mean, maybe I could screw somebody instead, since that happened to be right at hand. But how much money is a human life worth? Well, more than you can pay me, because everyone has value. And the very idea of anyone asking, oh, I'll pay you money to go kill somebody, just is reprehensible and would not be in my repertoire. And I don't know why I'm even talking about this, apart from the fact that you wanted me to talk about something that I would never do. So this, I think, is a classic example of cognitive dissonance, because I'm talking about a subject that I have no inclination to even think about. But this is table topics, and anything goes, including the question. So next time, pay me to walk your cat, and we might have some fun. Back to you.
Thank you, Doug. I agree. You couldn't pay me enough to be a hitman either. What is one item that you own that you won't throw away that you really need to get rid of? Trisha.
Thank you, Lori. Was one thing I own, I'm sorry, what was the rest of the question?
What is something you own that you won't throw away that you really need to get rid of?
Okay. Something that I won't throw away, but I really should get rid of. Well, I have a crafting room. It's about the size of 2 closets. Big enough for me to sit in there and do my crocheting and other craft projects, which I haven't done in over 2 years. So I have all these yarn and supplies and would never throw them away. But I really should consider donating them to someone who might actually use these things instead of them continuing to sit in my closet and gather dust, and maybe be inviting to some furry friends who happen to be visiting, although we'll be coming to visit in the fall, if not already here. But it's difficult. It's difficult to let these things go because, especially in the wintertime, if it's snowy and I don't really feel like going out,
it's nice to have a craft room where I could go in and create something for someone or just relax for a couple hours. But in all honesty, I haven't been in there in almost 2 years. So it might be time to consider getting rid of these things that I would never throw away, but should get rid of.
Mhm. Thank you, Trisha. Good job on that one. If you could stand at any pinnacle of any natural or man-made object, what object would that be? Dawn.
What a great question. If I could stand at the pinnacle of any object, so in my mind's eye, I'm seeing the pyramid of Giza in Giza, right? Like I'm just seeing like that pentacle, the tip of it. And I've never been to Egypt. I have thought about how many times I'd like to go. I have a friend who's traveling there with a group of other friends, and I could feel that feeling of like, is it jealousy? Do I wish I could go with her? And if I really wanted to, I probably could, but I think that I would. And maybe it's I just want to go to the top of that pyramid. And maybe that's the only desire that I have to be in Egypt, is just to be at the top, at that pinnacle of that pyramid and look around and to see. I feel being at that space, I would feel very safe. I don't think anybody else could harm me at the top. And I at this moment, I think that, yeah, that's most likely where I'd like to go, that I haven't been. I have experienced being some very high places, being at the top of a section of the Great Wall of China that was very high up, pinnacle, being on the Eiffel Tower, the Space Needle in Seattle was a very kind of high place. When I was really little, I climbed up one of those towers in the forest in Kentucky and got to see the over top of the hills all over, and I loved that. I didn't like going down, but I loved being at the top of that. So I've experienced a lot of like those high places. But I think the pyramids of Giza, I'd like to be at the top of one of those. Back to you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Dawn. You mentioned some interesting places for us to consider visiting. Well, that concludes our topic session for today. Thank you, everyone, for your participation and thought-provoking responses. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much again, Lori. Oh, and at this time, I am going to ask for our evaluator, Doug Thiessen, if he's prepared to give Rick his evaluation. Or Trisha, would you like to actually lead us in the general evaluation section? Let's just do that way.
Sure.
Trisha, lead us in our general evaluation section of our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. As all of us here know, the evaluation section is the most powerful part of Toastmasters, where we get instant feedback. We know how we did and what we could do to improve. I will first call on our evaluator, Doug Thiessen, and then we'll do a round robin, giving Rick some pointers on things that he did well and things he might be able to do to improve. Please go ahead, Doug.
Thank you, Trisha. And certainly thank you, Rick, for another great speech. This was a story on what it means to be mentored. Rick was working on the Presentation Mastery Level 2, and the final project is about mentoring. And I think it's great that Rick told us a story about what it means to be a mentee as opposed to being a mentor. And I loved how he opened it up with Toastmasters mentoring and then just jumped right in and said, that's boring. That was fun. It got my attention, and it certainly moved things forward very well. Now, this speech project is somewhat generic. It kind of looks across the repertoire of speech skills, vocal variety, eye contact, gestures, that sort of thing. And so I'm going to be kind of focused in that general direction. First, I was looking at the gestures, and Rick certainly had some good gestures, but I noticed, especially near the beginning, a lot of the gestures were just at the bottom of the screen. You could see half the hands at times, or sometimes even just the thumbs. But I noticed as the speech moved on, the gestures moved higher beyond the level of the shoulders, or at least to the level of the shoulders, which in the video conference setting is where we need to have our gestures because, well, that's what's visible. Oh, well done on being self-aware and improving that, Rick. Rick has a great speaking quality. You know, his use of language is excellent. He gave a definition of what it is to be a mentor and how that fit to him as well. So that was excellent. Rick's voice is great. You know, he uses vocal variety well. His voice has just got great clarity. One challenge I'm going to give Rick is in the matter of eye contact. Because I noticed Rick kind of looking down or looking away a lot of the time. And perhaps to notes, or perhaps speaking to different speakers on the screen. But if we really want to feel connected, we have to look straight at the camera. And then it looks like we're making eye contact to anybody looking at the screen, even though that's a challenge because I'm not making eye contact with anybody right now in terms of the screen itself. So we all could work on a little bit there. And one other challenge I would challenge Rick with is organization. I like how, you know, he talked about his first mentor, gave a little bit of that, gave the definition of mentorship. But I think the definition should have come first. He could have talked a bit then about his first mentor and moved into the really moving story of that mentor throughout his musical career, which I thought was a great story and really caught our attention or brought us in. And that part was well done. Overall, of course, Rick's already a great speaker, and this was a well done speech. Back to you, General Evaluator.
Thank you so much, Doug. And just to clarify, because it's been a minute since we've meted, how long does the overall group eval last? Is it 2 to 3 minutes?
I think it's 2 to 3 minutes. And
Okay.
it's a regular eval, yeah.
Is clarifying for myself and the timer.
Yeah, another 2 minutes.
Okay. Do we have someone else that would like to share some thoughts on Rick's speech? Yes, Kelly.
I want to piggyback on what Doug said in terms of the eyes. There's something very powerful about when, even if Rick or any of us were looking around, there's something powerful about not communicating until we come up and we're actually in eye contact again. I think some of the power might not be there if we're talking when we're down here, but if the conversation is held, and it was held as a conversation, which is really endearing, then if it was held until we get here and then say the words that need to be said, I think there's a lot more power in that. So just as a thought or as a challenge, hold off on anything and then come back and be right with the folks with the words. That's my thoughts.
Thank you. Anyone else? Rick, oh, go ahead, Dawn.
I guess I have to unmute myself. Also, to piggyback on what's already been said by Doug and Kelly, I'd like to just celebrate Rick's amazing ability to be engaging and maybe offer some suggestions that may, if you're going to do the speech again, may or may not help. But I really thought maybe bringing in this mentor that you had like right from the beginning and then maybe sandwiching his story, like but you want to hear about a great mentor, give him some energy, and then go into some of maybe your beginning stories and end up with that powerful. I loved the quote that you gave and how that impacted you. Maybe even make a whole speech about mentoring, about that one quote and how that one mentoring moment has filled the rest of your life since then. So just some different things to think about, some different ideas. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you. I see that our time has expired, so I will now turn the meeting back over to our Toastmaster of the day.
Yeah. What a quick and rapid meeting that we've had today. And at this,
actually, I was going to ask if Tricia had any comments she wanted to add about the meeting as a whole.
Oh, yes. I just find it very pleasurable to be all together once again. It seems like it's been a very long time. I'm not sure. I think I was away last month. Any case, I was very pleased to meet 2 of our members at the conference, and we had our own little ATO live. But yes, today's meeting was amazing. I really, really enjoyed your topics, Lori. I found them very, very captivating to think about and be like, oh, how would I answer this? So it took a moment to think of something, but it was just very personal. I really enjoyed them very, very much. Rick, I always find you are an excellent storyteller. I was just writing you a little note about how enlivened you are. When you tell a story, we just are right there with you, and I just admire that so very much. That's all. I guess I should ask for the timer report and the grammarian report as well, because it's been a minute since I did that. Sorry.
So as a timer, I used my repertoire and was capable of capturing some times from these fantastic speeches, small and large. Rick, your speech was 7:37. Doug, your evaluation was 3 minutes and 16 seconds. The group evaluation was 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Going to table topics, I had a 1:23 table topic speech. Doug, 2:10. Trish, 1 minute and 30 seconds. And Dawn, 2 minutes and 11 seconds. Wonderful job, everybody. Great job, Rick. Back to you.
And the grammarian report?
I believe that we now have had at least 2 people using the word repertoire, which was Kelly, who just pulled it in at the last second, and Rick used it. Is that correct?
Doug.
Doug used it. Got
I
it.
thought it would be perfect for my speech, and I didn't put it in.
Right, and I wrote down Doug and I said Rick, so right. I gave Rick credit for Doug's work.
I'll have to grow a beard then.
Yes. I enjoy our repertoire of skills in our Toastmasters Club. So thank you very much, and back to you, General Evaluator.
Well, I believe my job is now complete. I will turn it back over to the Toastmaster today.
Oh, how fun. Okay, I'm just going to call this an open moment for feedback on how we're enjoying meeting once a month. I'd love to hear some thoughts on that. And anyone have any thoughts on the meeting once a month? I love the energy of the meeting, even though we're just here this one time. Is it working?
Yeah, I certainly enjoy the energy too.
Yeah, I would just like to say that one thing that I really enjoy about the ATO meeting is the level of expertise of the members here. And we all can just carry on and make it happen. The feedback I received is feedback that I know that I need to improve, and it's good to hear it, and I really, really appreciate that. And I have a lot of respect for everybody that's on the screen here with me right now. So this was a wonderful meeting for me, and I hope it was for each of you as well.
Yeah, I enjoyed
I
it.
had a great time with this meeting. I think once a month is good for us, you know, because I make an extra commitment to be here for the one time a month that we do meet. And I'm glad that I do, because it's such a great group of people with enormous talent and the ability to give feedback on a level that is just superb. So I'm really pleased to still be part of this.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with everything everyone said. I really enjoy our meetings, and it's more important that I come to this meeting because it's the only meeting we have. So I'm going to make sure that I'm able, you know, if I'm able to, I will be here. And I really do. We have that certain je ne sais quoi together, and I'm practicing French a little bit because I'm going to Paris, maybe. But yeah, I really do enjoy getting together and having this time once a month, and you know, if we do grow, we can always revisit. But I do enjoy this space.
Good.
Awesome.
I was going to say that I also like how we're getting more critical mass on the once a month meeting. I didn't see your email, Dawn, that you sent out. Did anyone else get an email from Dawn about the meeting?
Did you get the?
I think I saw something yesterday.
Yeah, I think I sent it out on Monday. It may have been Monday evening, but it was basically the agenda straight from the website. So I got a lot of people who unsubscribed, not a lot, so a couple of people unsubscribed who haven't been coming, and they were just, so I know it was sent out, but I'm guessing it didn't get to everybody because you said you didn't see it.
I'm going to go look for it in case I missed it. But what I'd like to suggest is for this format that when we fill roles for the next meeting, the most important role for us to fill is the Toastmaster role.
Yeah.
And that if the Toastmaster can be mindful of even a week or two before the meeting to send an email and start soliciting volunteers, even if it's sending out a request 2 or 3 times in that 2-week period,
Yeah.
then we might get a better turnout for the meeting, because I think people need reminders where it's once a month.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
And a part of that was I did change the agenda, so it was on our meeting place. I think the email that you made, that was the agenda and the announcement, that I made the change and I wiped everything out. Like, so when I changed the dates, it wiped everything out on our future agendas. So we have to kind of plug it in again from the beginning. So,
Oh, you mean if people had picked roles, it wiped them out?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I have no idea. I think we did do some picking of roles the last time we met, but it just kind of all just disappeared. And we did talk about, I'm going to stop the recording now, actually, so we can, let's see, stop the recording. Yes.